Commander Park Hyenwoo's hands gripped the metal railing as he stared at the massive alien ship floating above Seoul. The thing was enormous, bigger than 3 aircraft carriers stacked on top of each other. Its dark hull pulsed with strange, purple lights, and everyone in the underground bunker could feel a low humming vibration through the concrete walls. "Sir, we're getting another transmission," said Communications Officer Yoon Do-hee, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a dragon and a crocodile. Wearing elaborate golden armor, Dr. Kim So-min stepped forward, her tablet glowing with translation algorithms. She had spent the last 3 days learning their language, barely sleeping as she worked to understand what these aliens wanted. "He's speaking again," she whispered, her voice shaky from exhaustion and fear. The alien's voice boomed through the speakers. A series of clicks and hisses that sounded like metal scraping against stone. So-min's translation appeared on the screen. As he spoke, "Pathetic creatures of the third rock from your yellow star. I am Emperor Kaithal of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. We have watched your clumsy attempts at space travel with amusement." Park felt his jaw tighten through the security cameras. He could see panicked crowds in the streets above. News helicopters circled the alien ship like tiny insects, their cameras broadcasting the scene to every corner of Earth. The Emperor continued, his reptilian eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. "Your species achieved faster than light travel through pure accident, a cosmic joke. Any civilization that stumbles into hyperspace technology without earning it does not deserve to pollute the galaxy." With their presence, Lieutenant Lee Min-ho, Park's trusted aide, moved closer to the display. The young officer's face was pale, but his voice remained steady. "What does he want from us, sir?" So-min held up her hand for silence as the translation continued. "However, we Zephyrians are not without mercy. We offer you the trial of worthiness, a sacred tradition that has decided the fate of countless worlds. You have exactly 1 galactic year, which equals 365 of your Earth rotations, to build your greatest fleet and meet us in honorable combat." The hologram shifted, showing a star map with a pulsing red dot. "The battlefield will be the Vega system, neutral space where many species have proven their worth or found their doom. If you can provide adequate entertainment, if your warriors can die with sufficient courage, we may allow your kind to serve as our slaves rather than face complete extinction." Park's stomach dropped as the screen filled with horrific images. Burning cities, melted landscapes, and the skeletal remains of once beautiful worlds. The Emperor's laughter echoed through the bunker as the footage played. "This is what happens to species that refuse our generous offer, or those too weak to provide proper support. Choose wisely. Humans, we will return in 1 year to collect either your surrender or your best attempt at resistance." The transmission cut to static, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Park looked round at his team, brilliant scientists, dedicated soldiers, and support staff who had never imagined they would face something like this. Earth's entire space program consisted of research stations, a few mining operations on the moon, and exploration probes that had barely reached the outer planets. "Sir," Lee Min-ho said quietly, consulting his tablet, "our current space fleet includes 12 research vessels, 2 cargo haulers, 1 mining station, and the prototype hyperspace engine that brought these aliens to us in the first place. Major Yoon Seok-jin, the bunker's military strategist, shook his head grimly. "The largest ship we have is the research vessel Sejong, and it's about the size of a small apartment building. How are we supposed to fight an empire that spans the galaxy?" Park walked to the tactical display showing Earth's orbital infrastructure. Blinking dots represented humanity's pathetic space assets scattered around the solar system, against an empire with 800 warships, each capable of destroying entire continents. It looked hopeless. "We need to contact every nation on Earth," Park said finally. "If we're going to do this, we need everyone, every resource, every brilliant mind. Every factory that can be converted to military production." Dr. Kim So-min looked up from her. "Notes, Commander. I've been analyzing their language patterns. These Zephyrians have a very rigid culture based on honor and tradition. They expect us to meet them in some kind of formal battle, ship-to-ship combat following ancient rules." "Good," Park replied, a dangerous smile crossing his face. "Let them. Expect that." Within hours, emergency broadcasts went out to every government on Earth. The alien threat was real. And humanity had less than a year to prepare for a fight that would determine whether the human race lived or died. In secret facilities round the world, engineers and scientists began working on projects that would have been considered impossible just days before. Above them, the alien ship continued its silent vigil, occasionally scanning Earth's surface with beams of purple light. The Zephyrians were studying their future opponents, confident that this backward species would provide amusing entertainment before their inevitable destruction. They had no idea what humans were capable of when their survival was at stake. The Colorado Mountain facility buzzed with activity at 3 in the morning. Dr. Choi Yuna hadn't slept properly in weeks, surviving on energy drinks and the desperate knowledge that humanity's survival depended on her work. Her reflection in the laboratory window showed a woman pushed to her limits, wild hair, bloodshot eyes, and hands that trembled from too much caffeine and too little rest. "Final test complete," announced her assistant, Engineer Party-hoon, his voice cracking with exhaustion. Behind them, the massive underground hangar doors groaned open, revealing the fruits of 6 months of non-stop engineering madness. The assembled military leaders gasped as thousands of small spacecraft filled the cavern. Each one was barely larger than a 2-seat fighter jet, but their sleek black hulls bristled with weapons that looked more like industrial tools than traditional armaments. Red warning lights blinked along their sides, and the air hummed with the energy of their compact fusion reactors. General Nam Kitai picked up one of the technical manuals, his weathered face growing pale as he read the specifications. "Dr. Choi, these things carry enough explosive power to level a city block, and you're telling me we've built 10,000 of them?" Choi's laugh was sharp and slightly unhinged. 10,000, General. "We've built 50,000, with more rolling off production lines every day. Every major nation has factories running 24 hours a day. The Chinese converted their entire automotive industry. The Americans turned their aircraft plants into drone factories. Even small countries like Denmark are building components in their basement workshops." She gestured to the nearest craft, where a technician was loading what looked like a torpedo with legs. "These aren't traditional spaceships. They're essentially smart bombs with pilots. Each one is designed to ram into enemy vessels, deploy their payload, and cause maximum damage before being destroyed." Captain Oh Sang-jin, recently promoted from Merchant Marine Service, stepped forward to examine one of the drones more closely. "Ma'am, respectfully, this is suicide. You're asking pilots to fly directly into enemy fire with no chance of survival." "No, Captain," Choi replied, her smile growing wider and more disturbing. "I'm asking them to take as many aliens with them as possible. Every volunteer pilot knows exactly what they're signing up for. We have a waiting list of over 1,000,000 people who want to fly these things." The reality of humanity's situation had changed everything. Traditional ideas about warfare, ethics, and survival had been thrown out the window. When facing extinction, humans had discovered they were willing to do absolutely anything to protect their species. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, engineer by Su Young, was conducting her own terrifying experiments. The mining equipment that had once extracted precious metals from space rocks had been converted into weapons that could accelerate chunks of iron to incredible speeds. "Think of it as a shotgun the size of a skyscraper," she explained to the bewildered mining crew. "We take our asteroid, hollow it out, pack it with smaller rocks, and fire the whole thing at enemy ships using magnetic acceleration. By the time it reaches the target, each piece will be moving fast enough to punch through any armor." Her crew, former asteroid miners who had volunteered for a military service, worked with the calm efficiency of people who had spent years in the dangerous environment of space. They knew how to work with explosives, how to move massive objects in zero gravity, and most importantly, how to stay alive in the vacuum of space when everything round them was trying to kill them. The breakthrough that changed everything came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Colonel Han Yijin had been monitoring alien communications from a secret listening post on the far side of the moon. Her team of cryptographers and linguists had been working round the clock to decode Zephyrian military transmissions. "Commander Park, you need to see this," she announced during a secure video call, her excitement barely contained. On the screen behind her, alien ships moved in perfect geometric formations. Their movements as predictable as a ballet performance. "They're completely predictable," she continued, highlighting different patterns on the tactical display. "Every maneuver follows ancient protocols that haven't changed in thousands of years. They announce their attacks, maintain formation at all costs, and never deviate from their battle plans. It's like they're fighting a war from a textbook written by their ancestors." Park leaned forward in his chair, studying the alien formations. "Are you telling me they fight fair?" "Exactly. They have rules, traditions, codes of honor that prevent them from adapting to new situations. They've been so successful for so long that they've forgotten how to actually fight a war against an opponent that doesn't follow their rules." The intelligence breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Other alien species throughout the galaxy, tired of Zephyrian oppression, began secretly contacting Earth through hidden communication channels. The Altarians, a peaceful species that had been enslaved for centuries, provided detailed information about Zephyrian shield technology. The vegan refugees, survivors of a world destroyed by the Empire, shared tactical data about weak points in their ships. "Everyone in the galaxy wants to see these reptiles taken down a few notches," reported Dr. Kim So-min, who had become Earth's unofficial alien diplomat. "We're not fighting this war alone. Half the galaxy is secretly rooting for US." As the months passed, Luna's orbit filled with humanity's improvised war fleet. Converted cargo ships bristled with missile launchers. Luxury cruise liners had been turned into troop transports. Even old satellites had been weaponized and repositioned as orbital mines. Commander Park stood in the observation deck of New Seoul, humanity's flagship, watching the chaotic collection of vessels that would soon face the Zephyrian Empire. The ships looked like they had been built in a junkyard by people who had never seen a real warship. They were ugly, asymmetrical, and completely unpredictable, sir. Lieutenant Lee Minho said quietly. "Do you really think this will work?" Park smiled grimly, watching as another squadron of suicide drones performed their final training exercises. "Minho, the aliens are expecting us to fight like civilized warriors. They want a clean, honorable battle with rules and traditions. Instead, they're going to face 50 million humans who have spent their entire history finding new and creative ways to kill each other." In the distance, Earth continued its frantic preparations. Every nation had contributed to the war effort, turning the entire planet into a massive weapons factory. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy what happened when you threatened a species that had perfected warfare through thousands of years of practice on each other. The Zephyrians had asked for a fight. They were about to get one they would never forget. The Vegas system had never seen anything like this. Two massive fleets faced each other across the cold void of space, their engines creating a light show visible from neighboring star systems. Thousands of alien observers from dozens of species watched through long-range sensors, placing bets on how quickly the humans would be annihilated. Admiral Velkov stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory Asterisk, admiring his perfect battle formation. 800 Zephyrian warships ranged themselves in precise geometric patterns that had been perfected over millennia of conquest. Each vessel was a work of art, sleek silver hulls that reflected starlight like mirrors, elegant weapon rays that could reduce planets to ash, and shields powerful enough to deflect the energy of a small sun. Magnificent, he hissed to his second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Gothex. Look at how our ships move in perfect harmony. Each captain knows exactly where to position his vessel, exactly when to fire, exactly how to maintain the sacred formations, passed down by our ancestors. In stark contrast, the human fleet looked like it had been assembled in a scrapyard during an earthquake. Commander Park's flagship, the Nusol Asterisk, was nothing more than a converted colony transport with missile pods welded to its hull. Down it swarmed hundreds of mismatched vessels, converted cargo haulers, retrofitted mining ships, luxury cruise liners turned into troop carriers, and thousands of tiny craft that looked more like oversized fighter jets than proper warships. Lieutenant Commander Kim Hae-jin, serving as Park's tactical officer, studied the alien formation through her senses. "Sir, they're beautiful," she admitted grudgingly. "Perfect spacing, optimal fire lanes. Textbook deployment. If this were a traditional space battle, we wouldn't stand a chance." Park smiled grimly as he watched the enemy fleet complete its ceremonial positioning. "Good thing we're not planning a traditional space battle." The communications ray crackled to life as Admiral Velkov's voice boomed across all frequencies. His translator made his words sound even more arrogant and condescending. "Pathetic humans, you have answered our challenge and arrived to face your betterment. Prepare to witness the true might of the Zephyrian Empire. We shall grant you swift and honorable deaths, as befits warriors brave enough to face us in open combat." The alien admiral paused dramatically, clearly expecting some kind of response, or plea from mercy. Throughout his career, he had conquered hundreds of worlds, and the pattern was always the same. The inferior species would beg, threaten, or try to negotiate. None had ever surprised him. Park's response was broadcast on all frequencies, heard by every ship in both fleets and every observer watching from across the galaxy. A single word, spoken with cold determination: execute. The space around the Zephyrian fleet suddenly turned into hell. What the aliens had dismissed as random space debris, chunks of metal and rock floating harmlessly between the two forces, revealed their true nature as the most devastating minefield in galactic history. Hundreds of hollowed-out asteroids, each packed with nuclear explosives and positioned over the past 6 months by stealth teams, detonated simultaneously. The explosions were visible from 3 star systems away. Massive balls of plasma expanded outward, turning the perfect Zephyrian formation into chaos as ships frantically tried to avoid the expanding death clouds. The Eternal Glory rocked violently as nearby detonations overloaded its shields, and Admiral Velkov was thrown to the deck. His emergency alarm screamed throughout his ship. "Impossible," he roared, pulling himself upright. "This is dishonorable, cowardly. Face us in proper combat according to the ancient laws of war." Captain Lim Jae-won's voice crackled through the communication chaos, transmitted from his converted mining vessel as it dove directly into the heart of the alien formation. "Honor is for the living. Reptile, we fight to survive." His ship, The Iron Mountain had once extracted precious metals from asteroids using massive industrial cutting lasers. Now those same lasers carved through Zephyrian hull armor like a hot knife through butter, the mining vessel's heavy construction, designed to withstand asteroid impacts and solar radiation, allowed it to punch through enemy fire that would have destroyed a traditional warship. Behind him came his entire Squadron 12, converted mining ships that had been training for this moment for months. They moved through the alien fleet like wolves attacking a flock of sheep, their industrial equipment proving devastatingly effective against ships designed for a ceremonial combat rather than real warfare. The Zephyrian return fire was exactly what humanity had expected, devastating but predictable. Massive energy beams lanced out in perfect coordination, following targeting patterns that had been used successfully for thousands of years against any traditional fleet. The aliens would have achieved total victory within minutes, but the human fleet didn't behave like any enemy the Zephyrians had ever faced. Instead of maintaining formation and trading volleys of fire, the human ships scattered like a flock of startled birds, breaking apart into seemingly random patterns that made coordinated targeting impossible. They're retreating, Sub-Admiral Gothex announced triumphantly. The cowards are running away. Admiral Velkoth studied his tactical display with growing unease. Something felt wrong about this retreat. The human ships weren't fleeing in panic, they were moving with purpose, reforming into new configurations that his tactical computers couldn't analyze, sir, his weapons officer reported. We're detecting massive energy signatures from the human fleet. They appear to be activating some kind of concealed weapons system. That's when Dr. Choi's swarm drones reveal themselves. From within the seemingly chaotic human formation, thousands upon thousands of tiny spacecraft emerged like angry wasps from a disturbed hive. Each drone was no larger than a fighter craft, but they moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. The sight was terrifying to witness. The drones flowed through space like a living organism, adjusting their formation in real time to avoid defensive fire while maintaining their inexorable advance toward the alien fleet. The Zephyrian point defense systems, designed to stop missiles and torpedoes, couldn't track and engage the sheer number of targets swarming toward them by the ancient flames, Velkoth whispered, watching his sensors as the cloud of human drones enveloped his fleet like a swarm of metallic locusts. What manner of warfare is this? The first wave of drones struck the Zephyrian shields with the force of a meteor shower. Each impact sent ripples of energy across the alien defensive screens. And though individual drones were destroyed by the hundreds, their sacrifice weakened the barriers protecting the larger ships. Commander Park watched the battle unfold from his flagship's bridge, his face illuminated by the glow of explosions and energy weapons. Second wave. Deploy, he ordered. Calmly. Another 1,000 drones emerged from concealment, followed by a third wave, then a fourth. The human strategy was becoming clear. They intended to overwhelm the enemy through sheer numbers and sacrifice, wearing down the superior alien technology through relentless, coordinated attacks. The Battle of Vega had begun, and already it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Admiral Velkoth dug into his command chair as he watched another of his heavy cruisers explode in a ball of superheated plasma. In 30 years of conquest across the galaxy, he had never witnessed anything like this. The humans weren't just fighting, they were waging war with a savage creativity that defied everything he knew about combat. Status report. He roared at his trembling communications officer. The young Zephyrian's voice cracked with terror. Admiral, we've lost 400 ships in the last hour. The humans, sir. They're not following any recognizable battle tactics. They're using ramming attacks, suicide runs, and they're somehow turning their own destroyed vessels into weapons through the bridge's massive viewing port. Velkov could see the impossible sight of human ships deliberately crashing into his formations. But these weren't desperate last stands, they were coordinated attacks. Human pilots were laughing over open communication channels as they guided their burning spacecraft into Zephyrian vessels. Their voices filled with a terrifying joy that chilled the alien admiral to his core. Commander Park stood calmly on the bridge of the New Sol Asterisk, surrounded by holographic displays showing the battle from dozens of angles. His staff worked with machine-like efficiency, coordinating attacks that would have been considered war crimes by any civilized species in the galaxy. Colonel Hanijin, "Take your wing and hit their command cluster," Park ordered. His voice as calm as if he were discussing the weather. "I want their flagship disabled, not destroyed. We need Velkov alive to witness what happens next." Han's response came through crackling with static and weapon fire. "Copy that, Commander. We're going in hard and fast. These reptiles picked the wrong species to threaten." Major Seoyunji, Park continued, "Begin electronic warfare protocols. Let's show them what human creativity can accomplish." Within seconds, the Zephyrian communications network was flooded with sounds that drove their operators to the edge of madness. Human war cries from ancient battles mixed with modern death metal music, creating a psychological assault unlike anything the aliens had ever experienced. The orderly Zephyrian command structure, which relied on precise coordination and formal protocols, collapsed as officers found themselves unable to issue coherent orders through the chaos. But the sounds were just the beginning. Seo's team had been studying human history, collecting recordings from every major conflict in human civilization. The Zephyrian translators began receiving audio files of famous battle speeches. Winston Churchill rallying Britain during World War II, ancient Greek warriors at Thermopylae, Viking berserkers charging into battle. The psychological impact was devastating as the aliens realized they were facing a species that had been perfecti in the art of warfare from a linear. Captain Kim Tae-hyun's squadron demonstrated humanity's most terrifying innovation as they engaged a cluster of Zephyrian destroyers. His ships had been designed with a revolutionary modular construction system. When hit by enemy fire, instead of being destroyed, they separated into smaller, independent units that continued fighting. "Watch this, you scaly bastards," Tae-hyun broadcasted as his cruiser took a direct hit from a Zephyrian plasma cannon. The massive vessel split apart like a flower blooming, revealing dozens of smaller attack craft that had been hidden within its structure. Each component was fully functional, armed, and piloted by volunteers who had trained for exactly this moment. The Zephyrians watched in horror as what they thought was a killing blow created more enemy. Instead of fewer, it was like fighting a mythical creature that grew two heads for everyone they cut off. Admiral Velkov's voice cracked as he spoke to his remaining captains. "These aren't warriors," he whispered, watching human pilots deliberately guide their damaged ships into collision courses with his fleet. "They're absolute madmen. No sane species fights like this." The humans on the communication channels seemed to hear him, because laughter erupted from dozens of ships simultaneously. Lieutenant Yu Haijin's voice cut through the chaos, clear and filled with deadly humor. "You wanted to see what humanity could do in a fight, Admiral. This is what we've been preparing for our entire existence. We've spent thousands of years killing each other in the most creative ways possible. You're just the latest enemy on a very long list." Her words were followed by footage that made the Zephyrian commanders recoil in shock. Historical clips of human warfare flashed across their screens. Medieval knights in brutal combat, World War II bombers diving through flak to reach their targets, modern soldiers charging through machine gun fire. Every image showed humans willing to die for their cause, fighting with a ferocity that seemed to increase rather than decrease as their situation became more desperate. The most terrifying moment came when Captain Park Ji-sung's heavily damaged battleship, its hull breached and life support failing, somehow managed to accelerate to ramming speed and punch straight through a Zephyrian dreadnought. The human captain's final transmission was a single word, "Remember." As the remaining Zephyrian ships began to retreat in panic, Velkov discovered that humanity had prepared one final surprise. His navigation officer's panicked voice filled the bridge. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. Ships are emerging from faster-than-light travel all round us." The retreat routes were blocked. Sleek human stealth vessels, invisible to Zephyrian sensors, had been tracking their hyperspace signatures from the moment the battle began. These ships had used experimental technology to follow the alien fleet's escape vectors and position themselves at every possible exit point. Impossible. Velkov breathed. "They don't have that kind of technology. They're primitives who stumbled onto hyperspace by accident." Commander Park's face appeared on every surviving Zephyrian ship's communication screen. His expression calm, but his eyes filled with the same deadly determination that had driven humanity to this moment. "Admiral Velkov," Park said quietly, "you made a fundamental error in judgment. You assumed we were primitives because we achieved faster-than-light travel recently. What you failed to understand is that we've been perfecting the art of killing for our entire history. Every war, every battle, every conflict on Earth taught us something new about how to destroy our enemies." The human commander gestured to the tactical display showing the surrounded Zephyrian fleet. "We didn't stumble onto hyperspace technology by accident. We developed it because we knew that someday someone like you would threaten our home. We've been preparing for this fight since the first human picked up a rock and used it as a weapon." The surviving Zephyrian ships found themselves trapped in a perfect circle of human vessels, with nowhere to run and no hope of victory. For the first time in their empire's history, they were the ones facing extinction. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened a species that had turned warfare into an art form. The crystal throne room of Emperor Keithel had never been so quiet. For 1,000 years, this chamber had echoed with the sounds of conquest victory reports from distant worlds, tribute ceremonies from enslaved species, and the terrified pleas of those about to be destroyed. Now, the only sound was the soft hum of the communication ray as it delivered the most devastating news in Zephyrian history. "Your Majesty," whispered Communications Minister Zatek, his reptilian features pale with terror, "we've lost contact with Admiral Velkov's fleet." The last transmission showed human ships swarming our formations like insects. Emperor Keithel's massive claws scraped against the armrests of his throne, leaving deep gouges in the ancient metal. His golden eyes, which had watched the destruction of countless civilizations, now showed something they had never displayed before: fear. "How many ships returned?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. 12, Your Majesty. Out of 800, and even those are reporting damage from human pursuit craft that somehow matched our fastest hyperspace speeds." The Emperor's roar of rage echoed through the palace, causing servants and guards to flee in terror. "Impossible. These primitives don't have that technology. They're barely capable of reaching their own moon." But even as he raged, the reports kept coming. The few surviving ships brought tales that sounded like nightmares: humans who fought without honor, who turned their own destroyed vessels into weapons, who seemed to take joy in sacrificing themselves to inflict maximum damage on their enemies. "Prepare the bombardment fleet," Keithel commanded, his voice dripping with venomous hatred. "We'll glass their pathetic world and end this embarrassment once and for all. Assemble every ship in the core worlds. I want Earth reduced to molten slag within the week." His military advisor, General Murthok, stepped forward nervously. "Your Majesty, Assembling the bombardment fleet will take several days. We need to recall ships from across the Empire. Then do it. The Emperor screamed. I don't care if it takes every ship we have. These humans will learn what happens when they dare to challenge the might of the Zephyrian Empire. That's when the unthinkable happened. The main communication console erupted in a cascade of alerts and warning signals. The officer monitoring the system looked up with a face drained of all color. Your Majesty, he stammered, we're receiving emergency transmissions from the core worlds. Our shipyards at Kepler Prime are under attack. The Vega military complex is reporting enemy vessels in their system. The Altair defense station has gone dark. The massive holographic display that dominated the throne room flickered to life, showing real-time footage from across the Zephyrian Empire. Sleek human vessels, their hulls still scorched from the battle at Vega, were emerging from hyperspace in system after system. They moved with the same terrifying coordination they had displayed in battle, striking at military targets with surgical precision. Emperor Kythel watched in stunned silence as centuries of military infrastructure were reduced to burning wreckage in a matter of hours. The humans hadn't just won a single battle, they had somehow managed to launch simultaneous invasions across Zephyrian space, targeting every major military installation in the Empire. How? He whispered, his voice broken. How did they know where to strike? The answer came from an unexpected source. Every screen in the palace suddenly displayed the same image: Commander Park Hyun-woo, standing on the bridge of his converted colony ship, surrounded by the organized chaos of a species that had just redefined galactic warfare. Emperor Kythel, Park said, his voice calm and measured, you challenged humanity to prove our worth in combat. Challenge accepted. What you're witnessing is our formal application for membership in galactic civilization. The human commander gestured to tactical displays showing the coordinated strikes across Zephyrian space. You see, while you were preparing for a ceremonial battle, we were preparing for a war. Real war. The kind our species has been perfecting for thousands of years. Park's image was replaced by footage from human history, ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern conflicts that showed a species that had never stopped learning new ways to fight. Every civilization you've conquered fought you according to your rules, using your tactics, accepting your definitions of honor and warfare. We studied your methods, learned your weaknesses, and prepared accordingly. The Emperor's communications officer reported more devastating news. Your Majesty, we're detecting human ships at the edge of our home system. Their broadcasting surrender demands. 3 months later, the galaxy had changed forever. The Zephyrian Empire, which had dominated known space for millennia, was no more. In its place stood something unprecedented: a galactic council where species governed themselves through cooperation rather than conquest. Ambassador Kim Hae-won, formerly a linguistics professor at Seoul National University, now represented humanity at the highest levels of galactic government. She stood before the assembled delegates, representatives from hundreds of species that had lived in fear of Zephyrian oppression for generations. The age of conquest is over, she announced. Her words translated into dozens of languages. Humanity offers a new model for galactic civilization, one based on mutual respect, shared defense, and the absolute certainty that any species threatening peace will face the combined might of all three worlds. In the audience, former slaves and conquered peoples wept openly. The nightmare of Zephyrian dominance had ended not through gradual rebellion or political maneuvering, but through the sudden, shocking intervention of a species no one had even known existed a year earlier. The former emperor, Kythel Naua, prisoner awaiting trial for crimes against entire civilizations, sat in his cell reading reports of the new galactic order with something approaching admiration. The humans had done in months what his empire had failed to accomplish in centuries. They had united the galaxy under a single banner. not through fear, but through the promise of protection. Dr. Choi Yuna, now Director of Human Space Defense, submitted her final report to the United Earth government. Her words were simple but carried the weight of species survival. Mission accomplished. The galaxy now understands that Earth's children don't start fights, we finish them. In the Vega system, where humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy, a memorial station orbited the battlefield. Visitors from across known space came to see the site where everything had changed. The inscription, carved in dozens of languages, carried a message that had become humanity's unofficial motto. Here lies the Zephyrian dream of easy conquest. Here begins humanity's promise: attack us at your own peril. The galaxy had learned to respect the species that had turned the preparation for war into an art form, and warfare itself into devastating poetry. Peace reigned among the stars, enforced not by tyranny, but by the absolute certainty that humanity would protect it, and in the depths of space, human patrol ships continued their silent vigil, ready to remind anyone who forgot the lesson of Vega that some species earned their place among the stars not through conquest, but through their absolute refusal to be conquered. The age of humanity had begun. *The end*.